All right. North Hills, I want to introduce you to a very close friend of mine. This guy is my brother. This is Dany Hernandez. Absolutely loads of hearts. And Dany and I worked out in Denver together. He was my lead pastor, and he is now a chaplain at Littleton Adventist Hospital out in Denver, Colorado. And I wanted to take this moment to kind of help give us a window into what comfort looks like, as the role of a chaplain in a hospital is very much along those lines. So Dany, thank you so much for taking some time with us and being with us today. This is awesome.
Hey, I'm happy to be here, Tim. Good to see your face, and hello, North Hill. How are you? One of these days I'll swing by. We can hang out. So that'd be great.
That'd be awesome. That would be awesome. Yeah. So Dany, you wrote an article, and I think maybe I'll share a link to the article in our Facebook group so people can check that out later. But you talked about the challenges. Life has totally changed for you as a chaplain over the last 6 weeks. Talk about that a little bit. You know, what does life look for you now? Now Colorado isn't the epicenter of anything right now, but
right.
But it is still very much affected the hospital and your work as a chaplain.
Yeah, and you know, we have to follow the CDC guidelines anyway. So whether you're in New York or you're here or wherever it is you're at, you know, you're gonna kind of have to follow the same procedures that everybody's following. And the biggest thing, like for me, from the article and reflecting back on it, the biggest change is the ability to be present. I mean, that's the biggest thing that has been taken away from us. And when we talk about chaplaincy, you know, it's really not that hard if you can learn to be present with people, and shut up at times and not say anything, but just give a hug, you know, stand next to someone, cry with them, and pretty much anybody can do those things. But that has been taken away from us, and we see that. We all know that that's such a big part of the healing process, you know, that togetherness, community, laughter, joy, sharing things, and COVID-19, that's why I hate COVID-19, is that it has taken that away from us, you know, as humans.
Yeah.
And it's part of how God created us.
You said, yeah, there's this great line that you have. COVID-19 has taken from us the ability to hug someone who just lost their spouse, to shake the hand of a first-time dad, to high-five a nurse leaving the hospital after a 12-hour shift. And so all of these kind of normal practices, you know, for the general person, they might not totally understand. Like chaplains are all over the place in a hospital. And so you have both the care of staff, and you have the care of patients, and you have the care of family in crisis situations. You have these three worlds in many ways that you deal with. How has this changed, and what creative things are you using and doing in order to just provide some of that? How are you getting creative to provide comfort in this challenge to each of those?
And that's hard. I mean, Tim, you know, you and I, from working together for so many years, we always come up with these crazy ideas, and we were like, yeah, let's try it. And if it doesn't work, it didn't work. In a hospital setting is different. I can't just try stuff. You know, I have to ask this person, and then ask that person, and ask this other person. And
if you need, I can write you an email.
Thank you. So one of the things that has changed but hasn't changed, I'm contradicting myself already, but that's okay, that's what I do, is that for me, I see that the biggest part of my job as a chaplain is to take care of our staff. Because we feel that if the staff is taken care of, that will translate to better patient care. So we place a huge emphasis on taking care of the staff. That doesn't mean we don't take care of the patients. We kind of see the whole thing. If I were to break it down into church terminology, I would say that our employees, our nurses, our staff, our associates are our church members. Our patients are our guests. They're going to be here, they're going to leave, you know. And yes, while they're here, we want to take good care of them. We want to make sure that They're treated with kindness and compassion. Different than church, we don't want them to come back. You know, there's a difference there.
Yeah.
We don't want our guests to come back. uh, and then every unit is like a small group, you know, because they do more together constantly all the time. So that's kind of how I like frame it in my head. And what's happened is during this time, I've gotten to the place where it's like, okay, forget about the guests, you know, forget about the patients. Not because I want to forget about the patient, but the reality is that I can't really see patients. You know, we're like, I'm all over the hospital. I don't want to take something into a patient's room that's not COVID positive. You know, I'm not going to go into a COVID positive or COVID pending patient, because that means I'm going to use up PPE, which means it's going to reduce our inventory of what we have for the staff. And when you get to a place where you are having to reuse gowns and reuse masks and reuse all these things, then we're going to minimize the amount of that stuff that we use. So over the last 4 weeks, my patient visits are have been very little. I spent time with families outside of the hospital, okay, or on the phone with them, you know, unfortunately telling them, no, you can't come. We've done a lot of Zoom meetings with the patients and the families. But most of it has been, man, I go to every unit every day and I'm talking to the staff, checking in on them, seeing how they're doing. I'm bringing them coffee, you know, every day. And it's just constantly asking, what can we do? What suggestions do you have? Because at the end of the day, what I think the biggest challenge is that they need to feel like somebody's listening to them, like somebody sees their pain. You know, I don't know, I heard that you were doing a series on Lamentations, which is one of my favorites. And it's about, you know, people want other people to see their pain. You know, I see you in your pain. I see you frustrated. I see you overwhelmed, and I see you tired. So I went up to the ICU the other day, and there was this nurse, and I looked at her, and I was like, Stephanie, I'm like, you look like trash. And she's like, thanks. But it's true. Yeah. So I mean, it's just that thing that there's nothing really that you can say except, hey, I'm with you. I see your pain. This is horrible. I am so sorry. And continue to affirm that and let them know that, like, you know, you're not alone in this journey. You know, this is not always going to be like this. We will learn something from this, and I don't know what it is. And so that's part of what's changed. It's kind of like our focus and our approach to that, how we provide care is completely different.
Gotcha. So as a chaplain, you kind of take on various things, and talk about your own process as you provide comfort. What are the challenges for you as a comforter in a really difficult time?
So one of the things that I mentioned in the article is about watching a wife with her hands on the glass in the ICU, watching her husband pass away. So that was a couple of weeks back, and I was there, and it was a time we were about a week and a half into this whole COVID thing. Everybody was really stressed. We had been so just bombarded with things, and I sat there, and literally I just started sobbing, you know, like literally crying, and I was pacing up and down the ICU, just bawling, big old tears, and the staff didn't really know what to do with it. You know, because I'm the guy that's always there when other people are crying, you know, but when the chaplain is crying, what do you say to the chaplain? You know, so there was a lot of these, like, make eye contact and then look away, you know. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. You know, like, he's the one that's supposed to have it together, but he's a mess. Like, what's going to happen to all of us? You know, and so but what happens is that I think I think it's important. Okay, I think it's important for patients, families, um, and staff to show that. Um, I think that it's important because it says something. We live in a culture where sometimes we feel like, it's not good to mourn or be sad or cry, and people constantly apologize. So I'm sorry, I'm crying. Okay, it's like that's kind of like the first reaction. And I think we need more modeling of people crying and says, hey, it's okay to cry. It's okay to cry. It's okay to mourn. It's okay to feel bad, and it's okay to show those emotions. I didn't get a whole lot of comfort while I was there in the hospital that day, but I did get a lot of text messages later. Like it's safer to just send a text message later. But I knew when I left that day, and I left earlier that day, I knew that I was done. Okay, I had given all that I could give for the last week and a half, and I had nothing else. Okay, at that point, and I told myself I need some time off. If I'm going to be any good over the next few weeks, I need to get away from this thing. So I took 2 days off right after that, and I've been okay. I mean, it's the power of self-care and kind of getting to that place where I have nothing else to give, so I got to get away, and do that. So that's kind of like, for me, that's what what's had to happen. It's been great, honestly, that I go home and I can't go anywhere. Okay, I'm stuck at home when I get home, and that's been actually a good thing for me. Yeah. But we all get to that point where there's no more, we're full.
Right. Are there times, like, what is it that you tap into in order, like, to inside of you, in order to be present and really be there and provide that kind of a care? And because I know that you're an incredibly high EQ person, that you've got a good sense for things. Is there anything in particular, any way that you've been able to kind of enter these difficult moments, any understanding of what grief is, or anything that allows you to kind of enter that moment, and then somewhat at least go home and not take it permanently home with you, at least?
Yeah, that was actually very hard learning for me, because, as you know, Pastor Tim, you're never off the clock, as a pastor. And let me just say this to all of you North Hill people, okay? Sometimes you say, well, the pastor has a flexible schedule. Yes, you know what the problem with a flexible schedule is? The flexible schedule, okay? You never clock out. And I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know. And so there was a sense of guilt for me at first when I left the hospital, thinking, like, there's something that I should be taking care of. There's something that I should be doing, because for the first time in my life, I was literally like leaving that thing behind. And so it was kind of hard to learn. But you realize that, hey, this is my wife, everybody. And my dog. Okay, bye. So that was kind of hard to learn. But if you don't learn it, you won't survive in this, because you can't continue to take things in. So, like, one mental picture that I have always when I am with people, okay, is, and I tell this to other people that when they ask me this, it's like when I'm with someone and I become part, that they bring me into their story, okay. I accept that story as sacred, because it is, okay, and I take that story and I hold it with all care and all love and all attention that I can. But when I leave, I put that story on the table in front of them and I walk away from it. Okay, so while I'm there, I am going to embrace the story and immerse myself in the story. But I know that as sacred as that story is, when I leave, I have to leave it, you know, because I can't take that story and then take the next story and then take the next story and then take the next story. And that takes practice and that takes time to learn how to do that. So one thing that I learned from my dad a long time ago, my dad was a pastor. He did a lot of visiting. And there were times where he could only be in someone's house for 5 minutes. But I remember him telling me a long time ago, he said, man, if you only have 5 minutes, like go in and make yourself as comfortable as possible. I mean, take your shoes off, kick back, you know, like act as if you were there, like if you're planning on being there for 2 or 3 hours. And even if you have 5 minutes, it's just that sense of, okay, I'm here with you. I'm in no rush, even though I'm going to leave in 5 minutes, you know, but it helps you kind of be present in that moment. And listen, there's been some of the most meaningful interactions that we've had, which has been sitting in a room with the husband while his wife dies. And we don't say a word for an hour. We just sit there next to each other. A mom who's losing her son and she has to go check on her husband who's disabled. And she says, I don't want my son to be alone while he's dying. Do you mind staying here? You know, and you stay in the room and you don't obviously have a conversation. You're just there, you're present. And so that's the thing that makes things difficult in this situation, because we're not able to do that. And so being present and being able to become absent are really, really important.
That's awesome. Dany, thank you so much. Like, you know, I'm still praying for you big time
Thank you.
through all of this.
Yeah.
I know the challenge as you want to be there for people is just immense. It's just,
Yeah.
And so you know, you've got an incredible heart, and the way you can be present with people automatically. It's in your wiring. And
The wiring.
yeah. And so I just thanks for taking the time to share with us today.
Absolutely. Anytime.
If there was one last nugget, one thing that you said, you know, I really want people to understand this about the care teams during COVID-19 or the process in these medical situations, what is it that would be your big thing that you'd want to communicate to people?
If you forget everything I say, don't forget this, and that is that grief is just love with nowhere to go. So I think that's, if we kind of like wrap our heads around that, you know, it's going to help us frame our situations, understanding that every person is grieving differently. But just because they're grieving differently doesn't mean that their grief is not valid. And we should respect that also as well. So yeah, that's what I got for you.
That's great. Well, thanks again for being here today. I'm sure everybody's enjoyed it. And so I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.